take a look.
The university is not requiring anybody to give their race at the beginning. When you give your race, you're not getting any special points. No one's automatically getting in because race is being used.
I thought that part of what it meant to be an American and to believe in American pluralism is that actually our institutions, are reflective of who we are as a people in all our variety.
I've heard the word diversity quite a few times, and I don't have a clue what it means. It seems to mean everything for everyone.
Actually, no, that's not what it means, sir.
All right, guys, you've seen the intro. Now, this video comes from The View. The Supreme Court and Harvard are having an ongoing case about affirmative action bring-ins in colleges. So, of course, The View is giving their take on it. So we're going to get into this video, you guys. Don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe while you're here watching with me. Now, let's get into it.
Can I quote him?
do.
In 1983, when he was chairman of the EEOC, this is what he said, the same person. It is my view that too much posturing has taken place on issues such as affirmative action, which are critical to minorities and women in this society. But for them, God only knows where I would be today.
Well, damn, that was 1983. That was 1983. Clarence Thomas was a lot younger. He was, he was still Clarence Thomas, but his mindset, I'm sure, was a little bit different back in 1983 than it is now. The world was America was a different America in 1983 compared to what it is today. So that might have something to do with why his tune has changed a bit on that. But, you'd have to ask Clarence Thomas if you want, the facts.
God only knows where I would be today.
Who said that?
Clarence Thomas.
Clarence!
It's terrible.
Clarence!
Yeah.
It's terrible.
Yeah, like they make it seem like he said that last year or something. Like, dude, it's 1983.
He's done this complete 180.
Yeah, like a lot of people in politics these days.
They do. I mean, I received an educational opportunity program, full scholarship to go to college. But for that, I wouldn't be sitting here today. My parents were very poor, and it was called the Equal Opportunity Program because race was a part of it.
Yes.
But I also had a 4.0.
That's right.
Right? So that's the difference. It just gives you the opportunity. And I think people are being really intellectually dishonest when they're sort of hinging.
Now, to provide a little context, excuse me, on the Supreme Court case that's going on, the issue seems to be particularly with Asians complaining about racism when trying to apply and get into colleges, because there's a personality score and then there's like the actual, the intellectual score, and Asians are failing the personality score. I don't even know what a personality score is for college. I don't understand why you would need a personality score. I thought college was about, like just education. I thought it was about being smart, but apparently it's more to it than that. And yeah, so that's the argument at the Supreme Court. It's about Asians not being let into college. Now I understand Sunny Holston's emotional, anecdotal story about her not being able to be let into college, but let's think like rationally for a second. I think personally that if affirmative action was never introduced, let's just say, and I know that's crazy to even think about, but if it was never introduced, then black people, Asian people, white people, whatever, we would all have to rise to the same standard to be admitted into college. So since we've had affirmative action for so long, to just take something away, it's hard to say how that would affect the real world. I mean, if they take it away and you want to get into the college, you're just going to have to perform. But that's how that could be. That's how affirmative action could have been a negative thing. Again, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. Affirmative action is, it sounds like a very good thing. It got Sunny Holston into college and a lot of other, people of color that couldn't afford it or wasn't smart enough to get in. But you're being pushed forward, not necessarily because of your not because you earned it, but you're getting pushed forward because of your socioeconomic status or your color, which is not right. And then to have you it's just like the stock market. Whenever someone wins, somebody loses. So imagine Sunny Holston got into the college. She said that her family couldn't afford it, whatever. Now imagine they let her into college, a less qualified person, when there's someone who studied harder, got better grades, but because they didn't pass that personality qualification aspect or, the race aspect or whatever, they didn't get let in. So while her story does sound very good, there's also a negative end to it. Sorry, I went on for so long.
This argument now against Harvard, saying that Asian Americans are being discriminated against. Because if you look actually at the statistics, the majority of Asian Americans support race-conscious admissions. And that's from the APIA
They
vote.
support what?
They support
Race-conscious.
race-conscious
Yeah.
admissions. Koreans by 82%, Indians 80%, Asian Americans overall 69%, Filipinos 67%, Vietnamese 67%, Japanese 65%, Chinese 59%. So let's not try to pretend that this is about Asian Americans being discriminated against. This is actually a concerted effort by a man named Edward Blum, who has been backed by dark money by the far right. And he was behind the Fisher versus Texas case, which took the first swipe at affirmative action. And the argument there was that white women were being discriminated against in affirmative action.
Bring up one thing that actually conflicts with the Pew poll in April 2022.
These are just facts that I
No, this is too.
researched.
It's the Pew poll, April 2022. Majorities of Americans across racial and ethnic and partisan groups say race or ethnicity should not be factored in to college acceptance. 68% of Hispanic adults, 63% Asian Americans, 59% of Black adults. And they said the things that should rank higher are high school grades, community service, whether they're the first in their family.
And see, this is the problem with stats and polls and things like that. They just read off two different stat sheets that almost say the exact opposite thing. She said that most Asians don't. Well, okay, no. She said Sunny Holston's statistics were that most Asians don't mind race-based college applications, but hers is saying that race shouldn't be the most important thing when you're talking about college, when you talk about getting into colleges, right? But let's continue.
Family to go to school, because there was an article, a roundtable about affirmative action, and this quote rang true to me. J. Caspian Kang said, "The great irony here is that this is about Harvard being an idea of an exemplar of diversity is absurd to me. Like, this is a school where they have almost as many students from the top 0.1%, not 1%, 0.1% of income earners. Almost everyone at Harvard is wealthy." So one of the things people are bringing is,
of people at Harvard are white legacy.
well, yeah, and let me just finish my point. I am completely against legacy and also donors. We know personally that Jared Kushner might have gotten into Harvard because of a massive donation. That definitely gears towards white people. But the point is that
doesn't a donation help the school to some extent?
But what they're saying is get rid of those. Get rid of donation, get rid of legacy.
I'm not sure that the school would survive without the
What about
donations.
athletics? Should we get rid of that advantage as well?
No, I think these specifically go towards white students is the legacy appointment.
I think that there's some value. Like, listen, I think we all universally agree that equality and equity and diversity is so important in higher education. It makes for a richer experience. So I think that's without question. I do think reshifting the lens a bit to focus on all aspects, the full.
Wait, hold on. I want to rewind really quick because she just came in talking really fast, but she said something I might disagree with.
I think that there's some value. Like, listen, I think we all universally agree that equality and equity and diversity is so important in higher education. It makes for.
Okay, she said we all agree that equality, diversity, equity, and all of this stuff is important in higher education. And I'm not about to go on too much because I just went on a rant earlier. But I will say, I feel like that's some of these people's problem right there is that they think we all agree on that all of that stuff is the most. No, like let's have a conversation on it. Because again, like I just said, they up here on this panel just read off two stats that go against each other. So I don't think it's just a universal. I don't think there's a universal acknowledgement of what she just said. I think it's more conversations that could be had about it.
For a richer experience. So I think that's without question. I do think reshifting the lens a bit to focus on all aspects, the full spectrum of diversity. I think we should be looking at socioeconomic diversity as much as we are race and other factors. A poor white person from Appalachia who's the first in there, not just the first to go to college, but to graduate high school.
That is taken into account. That's the insanity of why it makes no sense. That's why this was put in place, so that poor people would have the same chance and opportunity. Poor white, poor rich,
but the
poor
one
black.
thing is, I think we're letting off these elite institutions that have billion-dollar endowments that aren't themselves doing enough to contribute to diversity. Just the fact that even the discussion around student loan forgiveness, frankly, Harvard has $1 billion+ endowment, but they're letting people go to broke on the back of going to their school. Why aren't they doing more to make it equitable and
Harvard
accessible?
actually gives most most scholarships to the most students in the country and in the world, and I know this because for the money.
20% socioeconomically in this country make up a vast minority of the Harvard.
And that is because 70% of them are legacy. And by the way, the 30% of children that go to Harvard on athletic scholarships are also white. But let me just finish this one point.
But that would be based on race.
Wait, let's do this. You really want to finish the point?
I would.
You really want to?
Yeah.
Okay, we'll be right back.
Okay, so this one's over, you guys. So that's that. And then there's also this one. There's a part 2. So let's watch part 2.
Supreme Court hearing cases that challenge affirmative actions in schools, and
I just wanted to make the point
say.
that this is really about a conservative activist. He's not a lawyer. His name is Edward Blum, and Whoopi and I are both talking about him. He claims to be a champion of Asian Americans. That is not true. He claims that affirmative action harms Asian Americans. That is not true. He first started with white women. That didn't work. Now he's trying with Asian Americans. I think that is going to work. He is also in front of the Supreme Court being funded by a law firm and some dark money. Many of Clarence Thomas's law clerks work at this law firm. The next attack is on LGBTQ+ rights, and the next attack is on voting rights. And they're all before the Supreme Court. And so I think what we need to do is recognize this for what it is. This is a right-wing attack on our rights. And it's a concerted effort.
Sonny, there are a lot of Asian Americans that are a part of this, and there's something called a person.
I think they're the few.
Well, yeah, and it can be started by a guy like that, but it doesn't disrupt.
Okay, I think they're the few. Well, damn, what about, you know what I'm saying? Like, what about when black people was the few and they wanted their they wanted their voices heard? Black people still the few, but just because you're the few, that don't mean, you can't speak up on what you got to say. Now, affirmative action, whether she like it or not, she can't just dismiss it and say that it doesn't affect Asians. It doesn't affect. She can't just say that because she don't know what it's like to be Asian and trying to get into one of these schools. She don't know what it's like to be Asian. She don't know what it's like to be Asian and turned around from the school because you don't pass a personality score. When your grades hit every mark, and then someone, I'm gonna just say it frankly, when someone dumber than you gets let up in your spot, that's not right. Now, I know the world can't be perfect, but again, like I said, I think that had there not been no affirmative action in the first place, you wouldn't, you would have to rise to the occasion no matter what. If you wanted to get into the college, you would have to rise to the occasion. And so that way they would know that everyone who comes through that door is more than likely capable of handling the work, the studying, the projects, the exams that are going to be coming their way.
Up to the facts that there's a personality rating that Asian Americans are having trouble with in regards to a cultural difference. I wouldn't even say it's discriminatory, it's downright racist. They're judging them on a personality score, and if you win on just test scores, which, by the way, people think high school grades first, then standardized test scores, 43% of these elite institutions would be Asian. So the problem with the civil rights movement was to say don't discriminate against race because discriminating hurts a race. Fixing it with the same discrimination is going to hurt some other race.
That's not what happened. Let me explain.
Unless you're saying white people are discriminated against.
No, I'm saying Asian Americans in this instance.
Well, they are. You see the passive aggressiveness. Just let me run this back.
White people are discriminated against.
Let me explain.
Unless you're saying white people are discriminated against.
No,
You see the way she's looking at her, like all it's oh man, I don't like when people do that. You know, I'm a good body language analyzer. You know, I just learned things from life, and with this, like she's asking her a question. Unless you think white people are, you know what I'm saying? Like no white people are discriminated against. I mean, discrimination, anyone can be discriminated against. You there, I don't like the way you look, I don't like your skin color, I don't like you, I'm gonna discriminate against you. I could, you know, anyone could discriminate against anyone that, you know, they don't like. So for her to sit up here and say this and do this like she's really making some point, all snarky, and you know what I'm saying? I haven't really liked her energy this whole show. She's been very quiet, but it's been like she's been a little bit passive aggressive, and you know, clearly she doesn't like the pushback that she's getting from this lady here. I don't know her name. The white lady with the blue shirt on.
I'm saying Asian Americans in this instance.
Well, here's if you are someone who says these tests don't really reflect us, this is what we did when we talked about the tests that were given in American schools. Said this didn't really reflect how I grew up. You're asking questions I don't have any understanding of. Right. The key then is to adjust what you're doing. It's adjusting the standardized test. It is not stopping affirmative action, because once that happens, someone can then say, well, you know, we have 3 Asian American students. We've got enough. See, they can't do that. They can't say, oh, we have 3 women. We can't do that. The big picture of affirmative action, it is there to help people who would not normally be able to get in, not just on their merit, because folks who were applying to these schools had the grades, had everything, and they still weren't accepted. I'm talking about women.
The Supreme Court has indicated they would consider socioeconomic differences because clearly education is not equal in this country.
The problem with that is that's a failed experiment. In California in 1998, California passed, I believe it was called Proposition 209, that banished affirmative action. The very next year, the number of California Black and Latino first-year students plunged by nearly half at UCLA and UC Berkeley, and it has continued to fail precipitously since 1998.
This is where the diversity
so
question
taking
comes
the
in.
race out is a failed experiment.
Why does Clarence Thomas say
I'm not buying that. I'm not buying that it was a failed experiment. I think that by the time when they tried to do it, it was already too late. It was already too late. When you allow someone a privilege like affirmative action, that's something it's something. It's just like welfare. It's like you will get used to that. It's something that is intended to be good, that will inherently make the next generations a bit lazier and a bit lazier. When you know you don't have to rise to the same standard as other people to get into an institution. I don't understand what about that they can't grasp or they can't have a discussion on. But then again, you know, I'm just little old me sitting here on my PC, but they're the view, you know, if they say something, they say something like I'm saying, you know, everybody will probably hate them in the audience. So they don't want to lose their base.
he doesn't understand diversity? He's married to a white woman.
No,
isn't that diversity?
This is wait, but the point that you're touching on, Sunny, is important. Justice Brown said in her explanation, aren't other things taken into consideration? Like if you're a parent, if you're a vet, if you're the first one to go to college. She was even bringing up that diversity is different. When you speak, I think what he's saying is this diversity only racial diversity?
But it's,
is that what they're talking about?
That's all this man is talking about.
That's all he wants to take that piece out, and that's an important piece.
Yes.
And just real quick, what I think we can't lose from this discussion is American higher education's falling behind in some of the most critical fields. We're falling behind China. STEM fields, we do not have enough people going into them. That has national security implications. It has the future economy of the U.S., global competitiveness. So I think we need to think about how do we put forward the most qualified students from broadly diverse backgrounds and give everybody equal footing.
Well, you have to start with kindergarten, first of all.
Well, you
also
have to start with universal pre-K.
Make people accept people they visually don't want to sit next to. That is why it had to be a law, because if you had left it alone, people would not have accepted people. Women would not have gotten into college.
All right, I'm done at this point, because let's be honest, it's 2022. I don't care who you hate sitting next to. You sit next to someone you don't like all the time. All right, people ride trains, buses, you go everywhere. America's a melting pot, man. so I don't know what she's talking about with that. But to give my closing remarks, I think they think the answer is keeping affirmative action and it's all about college. I think that we need to work on the education system that prepares kids to go to college. I think if that becomes better, if we manage to catch up the level of learning the level of learning from the K through 8th grade, and then from 8th grade through high school, if we could catch kids up there, then once they get ready to go off to college, then it'll probably be easier for them. So that's just also something to consider. But this was a long ass video. 20 minutes. All right. So, it's good to sit down with you guys for 20 minutes sometimes, man, and just have this discussion. I just got new internet. I got Xfinity internet. So my house is going to be rocking. I should have the fastest speed. So I should be able to start streaming again soon, you guys. The Daily Wire winners, still kind of reaching out to people. I pick people, but some people have memberships. It's long, but don't worry. That's all being sorted out. But let me know what you thought about this video in the comments below. I'm out, you guys. Till next time. Peace.